Late last night, this tiny bit of movie news, I wasn't even going to have us talk about it, but it seems important. Sony and Marvel have reached some kind of a deal. They have reached some kind of a deal. Here's the basic gist of it, all right? Spider-Man, this is funny, the way this is worded, listen to this. The way the official announcement from Marvel and Sony came is that, here's how it's titled, Sony Pictures Entertainment brings Marvel Studios into the Amazing Spider-Man world.
Very weird.
It's not Spider-Man is being brought into the MCU. It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe being brought into the Spider-Man world. I thought this was pretty funny. So here's the basic gist of it. They have reached a deal. Spider-Man is going to appear in his own new film. They are recasting the role. Andrew Garfield will not be returning, which we always said, if they ever do cross us over, the continuity's all out. So they're going to have to recast him. So they are. They're going to be recasting Andrew Garfield's role, so we're going to get ourselves a new Spider-Man. A Spider-Man film is coming, I believe, July 28th, 2017. Yep. So what's going to happen, though, is Spider-Man, the same Spider-Man, will appear in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie prior to Spider-Man's first film. So he's going to be in one Marvel film. He might be in more in the future. For now, they're just saying one. And then he will have his own movie July 28th, 2017. Now, here's some pretty key points. Some people online are saying Marvel got Spider-Man back. They did not. Sony is very clear in the official press release that Sony still owns Spider-Man. They still have total creative control over Spider-Man. They will finance and distribute all standalone Spider-Man films. Now, that's regarding the standalone Spider-Man films. How much control Sony and Marvel split over the Marvel cinematic movies that Spider-Man appears in, that's unclear. I think we can probably assume that at that point, Marvel will have creative control at that point. So, not sure. But, just to be clear, Sony still owns, they were very clear in using that word, they still own Spider-Man, they own all the movies, they have full final creative control. That being said, Kevin Feige will come on as a producer for the standalone Spider-Man movies with former Sony Pictures head Amy Pascal, who will also be the producer. I also read on Deadline today that Avi Arad is still executive producer of the Spider-Man films as well, so that's all there as well. Now, how much control a Kevin Feige or influence Kevin Feige will have as a producer, how big of a producer role Kevin Feige is going to have in the Amazing Spider-Man movies is yet to be seen, because we just talked about it a month ago, right? Kevin Feige is also a producer on the upcoming Fox Deadpool movie. He was also the producer on Punisher Warzone and the producer on Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. But he had very, very little to do with those films, right? So how much influence and input he'll have on the Sony pictures as a full-fledged producer, as a producer in name only, we don't know. We can only hope that it's more of a creative role than another thing. So this all came out of nowhere. Now, the other thing this does is this forces, with a July 28th, 2017 release date, this forces Marvel to move around their release schedule. Because Thor Ragnarok was scheduled to drop on July 28th, 2017. They are now moving Thor Ragnarok to, I believe, November 3rd, 2017. Black Panther now, which had the November 3rd date, is moving to July 6th, 2017. So we're going to get a Black Panther on July 6th, new Spider-Man on July 28th.
I think July, you mean July 2018.
Yeah, pushed back.
2000. Oh,
Black Panther pushed back.
Yeah.
No. Black Panther, which had the date November 3rd, will now move up to July 6th, 2017.
Move up. Wow.
I heard that it moved back, too.
Well, that's in the Variety report.
Oh, yeah.
I think
So,
Thor moved back.
Thor moved back to
I'm happy about
November
Black Panther
2017.
Yeah.
From July 2017, Black Panther moves up to July 6th, 2017. Now, I mean, that's the Variety report. Maybe the Variety report is wrong, but we've got it right here in front of us right now.
Right on.
And then it says Inhumans will now be moved back to summer 2019. Captain Marvel will be moved back to November 2018. So a whole bunch of stuff there dropped out of nowhere last night. Schnepp, you heard the news. Your first thoughts on this?
A big sigh of relief. Actually, it was fun to know either way, because of all these months of speculation, and kind of a tinge of sadness because of the interview and the way all this information came out. Like, you know, while they were still obviously dealing with it and trying to figure things out, we got little things of information like, oh, Sony's mad at Andrew Garfield, all these inner things that just like went everywhere that technically we should have just found out about this when, like we did right now, instead of all this backdoor dealing kind of stuff. But overall, I'm really happy that this is happening. As a lot of people know, I was not very happy with the newer incarnation of the Spider-Man movies.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah, I just think this is a really good step in the right direction. And even though Sony is, putting their face on in the press release saying we still own all this and creative control and this and that. Look, it's a deal, and guess what happens when deals happen? Creative control will be given to Marvel. Marvel will be making the decisions.
Oh, you're wrong.
Sony, really?
You're wrong. Yeah, well, I mean, this is in Marvel's press release. Sony maintains final creative control of the Spider-Man
that's what they
movies.
said. Yeah. I don't believe it for 1 second.
Yeah, I'm with Schnepp on that one.
I think it's a nice way to save face. They're like, it's a very honorable thing for Marvel to be like, look, no, it's cool. You can still say that you own creative control, but I'm sorry, that's right. Sony's bringing Marvel into our universe. Look, Disney's going to be making a lot of money. I think there's probably a 50-50 split, if anything. So that they don't mention anything about how are they sharing the revenues. That's one thing. Number two, it's like we know that, probably Spider-Man's not going to be in Civil War, which is great because he was a big part of the Civil War comic book storyline. So I personally, even though I don't know this, it's just conjecture, I think that, it's a more of a fair thing. It's probably a lot more fair than what they're putting on. They're like, look, you could say it however you want in the press release, but we're going to make it a fair deal. That's what I think. And anyway, I think the fans, we all win.
Yeah.
There's a few movies that get shuffled around a couple months, which was a little annoying. But at the same time, it's like, look, as long as Spider-Man is now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's just one step closer to the way we've all enjoyed the comic book universe. So I think it's a great idea.
I think what's really interesting about this whole thing is that, for the longest time, like my answer to could Spider-Man be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at all, it was never, no way, no how. It ain't going to happen. But then about a year ago, we start hearing that Sony, not just Sony Pictures, but Sony as a larger corporation, is in trouble. We start hearing financial woes. We start hearing that there are talks about spinning off the film division. We start hearing about all that stuff. And then while The Amazing Spider-Man 2 made money, it fell far less and far lower than what they wanted it to do. And even though I kind of liked Amazing Spider-Man 2, even I say, in going to what Schnepp was saying, even I say it was a huge step backwards because I thought the first Amazing Spider-Man was great. All that came together, and then all of a sudden we had to change our tune from never know how this is going to happen to the circumstances have changed. Sony's in a different place now. The franchise is in a different place now. I still didn't think it would happen for a couple of years.
You didn't even mention the hacks.
Oh, well, yeah, then the hacks come out and
Yeah.
Sony gets embarrassed. So obviously the entire landscape changed
Yeah.
with that. Right. And I thought, I said on a recent mailbag, eventually this is going to happen. Spider-Man's going to go back to Marvel. But even I didn't think it was going to be for at least a few years. I thought Sony would still take one last crack at their own Spider-Man 3. So while this isn't a total surprise, I'm a little bit surprised about this. I do believe the press release. I do believe what Marvel's saying. I do believe what Sony is saying. I think this is a fair deal the way it's worded because Spider-Man belongs to Sony. They don't have to give Marvel anything, and they know that. But in this deal, if we're understanding it right, Marvel gets to, without much financial risk, here's the nice move on Marvel's part, right? With very, very little financial risk, they now get to incorporate Spider-Man into their films, right? And use him, I'm guessing, under their own creative control. Although this press release doesn't specify that. But when Spider-Man shows up in Civil War, when he shows up in whatever, they're going to have creative control what happens there. And then Sony still gets to finance, have creative control, run their own standalone things, but Marvel has no financial liability with it. They're a risk-free thing at that point. They're like, hey, whatever. Now, I'm sure Kevin Feige, who's on as a producer, is going to have some input. And I believe if Sony is not a bunch of raging lunatics, they will listen to what Kevin Feige says, and they will take his direction and take his input, and then say, Kevin, what should we do here? We should turn left here, Sony. Sony then says, we have decided we shall turn left. I mean, and I think that's the way it's going to turn out. Reality, it's their power, but if they're smart, they will, 9 times out of 10, take what Kevin Feige suggests they need to do. And Amy Pascal is not an idiot either, so having her on there is pretty cool too. Nowhere does it say that Spider-Man's going to show up in in Civil War. But here's the thing. It says Spider-Man coming July 28th, 2017, and he will appear in one Marvel film prior to that. Well, how many Marvel films not yet in production are coming out prior to July 28th, 2017? Not many. It's probably going to be Civil War.
Well, where does he fit in the best? He fits in the best for Civil War because that storyline. I mean, you have Captain America and Iron Man; those are the two guys, and then Spider-Man's right there in the center of it. And we had talked about maybe before this announcement, we're like, okay, maybe they're gonna take Black Panther and he's gonna play that role. Well, now they got Spider-Man back. I think they're gonna put him right back in.
Amy Rose, we were in a bar in Atlanta last night when all of a sudden our phones started blowing up with all this. Your reaction to this?
A long day, and we just wanted to, be a part of the news. And it was just kind of surreal. It's just really exciting. I mean, there is a tinge of sadness as well because how far, Sony has fallen. But hopefully all this is true. I mean, we're going to find out a lot more about, the actual deal. This is day 2, we're going to see really what that means, how it's split. But we've always been talking about how we wish studios could work together more to bring this universe. It's about the fans. Yes, it's about profit, but it's about the fans. And I'm really excited to see what Feige and team do with this incredible character in this universe that they already have built. It's so strong. So it's really exciting. And I mean, it's got to be Peter Parker because that's the bread and butter, but they could have explored Morales or some other incarnation of it that could be interesting. But we've talked about this before as well. Peter Parker is the bread and butter of,
he is Spider-Man.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really exciting, and I am interested to see how it's going to affect everything else moving forward.
I think Sony is going to take more of a hands-off approach. I think this deal was made because, yes, they're in financial trouble and all this other stuff, but also remember they have to, in order to keep that license, they need to make these movies, and you have Amy Pascal leaving. Everything's kind of in disarray over there, so they're like, we need more time. So they made this deal. I think they still have.
That's a great point that nobody's talking about. Actually.
Yeah, they have a creative control. I think it's one of those things where okay, if the movies that are coming out in partnership don't make a ton of money, then they're going to come and step in and do whatever. But I think right now they just want the money. They're just like, hey, Marvel, we know you make it. You turn Guardians of the Galaxy into the second biggest movie of 2014. Look what you're going to do that with Spider-Man. You're going to make it even bigger. So they're like, here, just give us the money.
Especially after the criticism of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sure, it made a lot of money, but it got fans a little more skeptical for the universe ahead, and they had to take and pause. And I feel really bad for Andrew Garfield because I think he really was.
He wasn't the problem with Amazing Spider-Man 2.
And he was solid, and he, loved this character and jumped into a franchise at the wrong time, really, because he really could have continued on, but now there's no way. We've talked about this many times on the show. You can't have the same, actor in this universe. You just can't.
It completely screws up the previous thing. And what's really sad about this, too, is that, Andrew Garfield comes in. We talked recently on Mailbag, somebody was asking, okay, hey, if the Star Wars prequels had been good, would George Lucas have ever sold the Star Wars rights to thing, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff? I still contend The Amazing Spider-Man 1 with Andrew Garfield was fantastic. I love that film. Had Amazing Spider-Man 2 been at least as good as Part 1 and not taken the nosedive in quality the way it did, I don't think we're having this conversation right now.
We would never have this conversation.
And Garfield was great.
And Garfield was great.
Yeah, we'd be seeing, what was it, the Sinister
Six.
Six, Aunt May movie coming up. We'd be like,
that's the one Schnepp was really looking for, too.
Yeah, what do you do with the screenplay now?
Avi, they didn't get rid of Avi. Maybe it's still happening. He's Aunt May, now I can write it. We're going to shoot in Bulgaria. It's going to still happen.
Here's my thought on this. So when you look, okay, in sports terms, whenever there's a big trade, who got the better end of this deal? So I'm looking at this, and I think, this is the interesting thing, I think by far Sony got the better end of this deal. But Marvel is also in a position where they didn't need to get the best end of the deal. So here's what Sony gets out of it. They get, now their franchise, Spider-Man, is still theirs. Only now everybody is excited about this franchise all of a sudden instead of talking crap about it.
Right.
So they get that. They get to keep everything. Really, they've lost nothing. Marvel, on the other hand, they don't get much. They get to add one more character to the universe.
Which is not small.
They get to add the biggest character to their universe.
But my contention has always been they're already making all the money. It's not going to add much. But to somebody who would say, oh, but all they got was one character. Yes. But what did they give up? Almost nothing. Right. Marvel, in this situation, gave up almost nothing.
Nothing.
But Sony still has Spider-Man. They had Spider-Man before. What do you got? Now we got Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when we want to use them, or at least for one film at the minimum. and we give up nothing for free.
Yeah.
So while I think Sony got the better in the deal, but Marvel gets something for nothing. This is a win-win-win-win-win. Do you guys see it any other way?
No, I mean, and I'm now just thinking about, okay, Spider-Man's going to be in Infinity War, Part 1 and 2. It's going to be awesome.
And it's a reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, so any feelings that I had about them going forward with all these different spin-offs of the Spider-Man universe, which I thought was a horrible idea after The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm a little bummed for Drew Goddard because he left Daredevil to work on Sinister Six, and now that's been canned.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure, he's a really talented guy, so, he'll jump to something else. But
I'm sure they'll have something for him.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Look, I'm really excited about this news. I think it's a win-win, like you said. I think, behind the pieces of paper and the announcements, there's a lot more Marvels, I think, getting a lot more. They're just hey, look, we're going to take it back. You don't have to say all the cool stuff we're getting. You just make you look good. I think that's what it's like.
You know what that could be another thing that Marvel's getting out of this? Because, okay, the announcers only say that Spider-Man appears in one film. They don't say he won't appear in more, but they don't say he will. But one of the little details in this announcement, which I think is going under the radar, is that in the Amazing Spider-Man movies moving forward, people from the MCU could start showing up in Spider-Man movies. Here's where this could really work out to Marvel's favor. They could now use Spider-Man as a testing ground for certain characters if they want. If they got a character that they're like, we're not sure if we want to make a film with this guy. Hey, let's put him in the Spider-Man movie, see how he works out, see if the audience like him. Great, then we launch a brand new Bishop movie. Or no, Bishop's with
No, it'd be like Speedball for all you super sweaties who know who Speedball is. Let's chuck him in the Marvel Spider-Man cinematic universe.
I mean, it's a fascinating deal, and I'm really looking forward. Like you said, I'm sure there's layers upon layers of this that we don't even know about that we will determine and find out.
And now
more
who's gonna play the new Spider-Man?
Well, that's the big. Now let's talk about that for a second. Is now the big speculation from now until, and they're going to have to name it soon if they want to stand. If Spider-Man's going to be in a movie before
they already have names.
Summer
They're
2017,
we know that's true.
The two names that I keep hearing floated, and it's probably not going to be either of them. The two names I keep hearing being floated for the new Spider-Man is number one, Logan Lerman, which is a fascinating name because he was the next guy they were going to use. After if Andrew Garfield didn't work out, they were going to go with Logan Lerman. So he's an interesting name. The other one, Zach Neighbors. Efron. The other name I'm hearing floating around is Zach Efron.
I have not heard his name until now.
The internet will light on fire if he gets cast as Peter Parker.
But you know what?
I'm going
to tell you this right now. I'm going to tell you this right now. Zach Efron is the new Matthew McConaughey because for years and years and years, everybody would say, "Oh, Matthew McConaughey," and he was just a joke. Everybody said he was a joke, and I would say forever. No. This is the guy from Amistad. This is the guy from all these movies. This is a great talent, and filmmakers in Hollywood know Efron is a great talent.
I still don't want him as Spider-Man.
I'm not saying he'd be my choice. I'm not saying he'd be my choice. But if they came out tomorrow and said Zac Efron's the new Spider-Man, I think he's a little old to be a new Spider-Man, to be frank with you. But if they came out and said it, I'd go, okay, I'm in. I'm much more fascinated by Logan Lerman, but as in most things, it'll probably end up being neither of them.
I'm hearing the star of Kingsman as well.
The kid from Kingsman.
He's really good and would be a good fit. And
that's an interesting name. What about you guys? Can you think of anybody off the top of your head do you think would be a good fit?
Off the top of my head, I haven't even thought about it, no. I mean...
Yeah,
it's a lot to digest.
Yeah, Logan Lerman is one, but it depends on how old they want to make Peter Parker in this new.
Here's what they want to be bold.
No reboot of the origin story though. We don't need to see that again.
We
don't need to see it, but I would love it to be like
in the intro,
how
like
it originally was, like he's in high school.
Okay.
I think it would be good to get somebody who's like
just
cast somebody who's like
do it like the Hulk.
The
Hulk.
First 2 minutes opening credits, they tell the story and away you go.
In a montage.
If they want to be bold though, and they really want to make waves.
They
Patrick Stewart as Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Mark it down. I'm calling it right now. Patrick Stewart is going to be your new Spider-Man.
As Gandalf, as Spider-Man.
Ian McKellen.
Let's switch characters on us.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.